Will eating avocado toast make you a better mother? Will your plastics soon be made out of animal byproducts? And did we find a cure for Ebola by sacrificing macaques? This is Deep Ray, and get ready to be debriefed. But first, an eco-friendly method to convert methane into ethanol. So, scientists have developed a light-powered catalyst that converts methane, which is the main component of natural gas, directly into ethanol with about 80% product selectivity, meaning most of the methane is turned into ethanol rather than unwanted byproducts. This one-step process works at room temperature and achieves roughly 10% light-to-chemical energy efficiency, which is about 20 times more efficient than earlier attempts. This breakthrough lies in a novel covalent triazine framework polymer catalyst containing an intramolecular junction, and here it is in case you want to see it. So in simple terms, the catalyst has two different active sites in one material. One site grabs onto oxygen and water, and the other activates methane. And this is helping two methane molecules join into one ethanol molecule. This dual site design keeps the reaction from going too far. It avoids over-oxidizing the methane into carbon dioxide and water. Even adding a tiny amount of platinum metal to the catalyst further boosted ethanol output, showing promise for scaling up. As one of the researchers put it, this is a step change advancement in the photocatalytic conversion of methane into value-added green chemicals. This is turning methane into a much more desirable liquid chemical relatively efficiently at ambient conditions, said Professor Zhengxiao Guo, and I apologize if I mispronounced that. So in other words, the team dramatically improved the process of turning methane into a useful liquid fuel under normal conditions. So why does this matter? Methane is an extremely potent greenhouse gas and is often wasted through burning at oil wells and landfills. By converting methane into ethanol, a liquid fuel and industrial chemical, this method could reduce the emissions and make use of a gas that otherwise is hard to handle. Ethanol, much easier to store and transport than methane or hydrogen gas, and it can be used in existing fuel infrastructure. So even for vehicles on land, ships, and airplanes. This aligns with the carbon neutral energy goals by providing a cleaner way to use methane instead of letting it escape into the atmosphere. So over $100 billion of the global market is ethanol, and that is experiencing 7% yearly growth, approximately. For a cheap, eco-friendly supply of ethanol from waste methane could disrupt energy markets. For example, turning biogas or landfill gas into revenue while cutting pollution. So industries might save energy too, since the traditional method to get fuels from methane, such as the Fischer-Tropsch synthesis, needs very high temperatures. So that's about 700 degrees Celsius and pressure. And this is costly and inefficient. Now, granted, the efficiency of this method is only about 2% now, but ideally you are able to repeat the process over and over again and extract more and more ethanol from this source methanol. So this new catalyst works in mild conditions and offering a potentially low-cost, low-carbon alternative. What are some next steps and challenges? So one, as I said earlier, it's only 2.3% efficient right now. However, there is room to improve the yield, and researchers will be working to boost the conversion efficiency and durability of the catalyst. Scaling this up from the lab reactor to an industrial scale will be crucial before it can make a real impact. Nonetheless, the high selectivity and efficiency achieved are major proof of concepts that could pave the way for a greener fuel production. Scientists will also need to ensure the method is economically viable and consider any engineering hurdles like a catalyst cost of lifetime in the real-world operation. Next, 2. Keratin-based biodegradable plastics. Plastic pollution problem. Conventional plastics don't biodegrade completely. They break into tiny microplastic particles and have been found in virtually every ecosystem and even within animals, including humans. This has raised health concerns because there's potential links to inflammation and other types of ailments, and there's a strong push for eco-friendly alternatives and also health-friendly alternatives. The new research tackles the problem by creating a plastic that can break down easily using a natural protein, keratin, as its base. So turning the waste into plastic, keratin, it's a tough, fibrous protein found in hair, wool, horns, feathers, and the hooves of animals, even your fingernails, right? So huge amounts of keratin end up as waste. So think about the wool offcuts or poultry feathers, right? What do you do with those? We don't really put feathers into pillows so much anymore. And until now, it's been hard to repurpose. So past attempts could only make keratin into, say, powders or additives and not really solid material. So the Italian research team discovered a way to upgrade this keratin waste into a moldable bioplastic. So in other words, they took a low-value byproduct and turned it into something useful. So how did they do it? The team combined two known processing techniques in a new way. So first, they extracted the long keratin molecules from sheep's wool by dissolving it in a gentle chemical solution, which includes urea and sodium metabisulfate, The sodium metabisulfate is going to sort of break down the thiol bonds, or I should say the disulfide linkages within the wool, and then this sort of helps break everything apart so you are able to extract the polymer. So this pulls out protein strands, much like unwinding threads from wool. So next, they link those strands together in a plastic. They used a reaction called a Michael addition, which is a common polymer chemistry technique. And by mixing the keratin solution with the polyethylene glycol and soybean oil acrylate, and just, polyethylene glycol is another plastic, right? So you're not completely removing plastic out of the process. However, in simple terms, the second step glues the keratin proteins into a network with the help of some bio-based chemicals, forming a solid polymer. So the soybean oil is bio-based, the polyethylene glycol not exactly bio-based. So here are the results. It's a new bioplastic. And after processing and purifying, the team ended up with a solid material that can be formed into various shapes. So it's a true plastic, not just a powder. And so because it's made of protein and bio-based alternatives, it's expected to biodegrade much more easily than traditional petroleum plastics. Now, granted, if they want to market this as a biodegradable plastic, there are more tests that need to be done to give a certification for that type of stuff. This could mean that instead of persisting for hundreds of years, products made from this material might decompose naturally. However, exact biodegradation rate isn't reported yet and will need to be tested. So, safety and performance. The researchers note that further testing is needed to fully understand the new plastic's properties. They'll examine things like its strength, flexibility, durability, and will it hold up as packaging material, and how quickly it biodegrades under various conditions. They're doing this, ensuring it's non-toxic and stable enough for practical use is also important. So the team is hopeful that with good properties, this keratin plastic could serve as a replacement for some other conventional plastics, reducing the need for fossil fuel-based materials. So what is the impact? So if successful, this keratin-based plastic could have significant environmental and economic impacts. Environmentally, it offers a twofold advantage. It uses renewable animal waste as a raw material, and it should biodegrade without leaving microplastics, which means less landfill waste and less long-term pollution in oceans and soils, and also theoretically less health hazard. Economically, farms and industries could sell or utilize keratin-rich wastes like feather, meal, or wool scraps instead of discarding it, creating a new supply chain for sustainable materials. And so anything in the ag industry, you want to increase your margins of profits. And so if you are able to sell or create an entirely new industry out of one of your waste products, you are greatly increasing your profit margins. And so this is going to be excellent for the ag industry if they are able to successfully implement this. On a societal level, customers and regulators are seeking greener products. A sturdy bioplastic that could naturally break down could be used in packaging, consumer goods, or medical applications, potentially easing the socio-political pressure on plastic pollution. So it might also inspire policy supporting bioplastics research and the recycling of agricultural waste. So next, Ebola treatment through an oral pill. So a new study demonstrated that an oral antiviral pill called obeldesivir can cure Ebola in monkeys. And this is an achievement that raises hope for practical human treatment. So in the experiment, rhesus and cynomolgus macaque monkeys were infected with a lethal dose of Ebola virus, then given a pill once a day starting 24 hours after exposure. All of the treated monkeys survived, so 10 out of 10, whereas the untreated control animals died. In fact, obeldesivir saved 100% of the rhesus macaques and 80% of the cynomolgus macaques. And this is despite the infection being a severe, usually fatal strain. This is the first time a simple pill has proven effective against Ebola in primates, which is paving the way for more accessible treatment in outbreaks. So what is obeldesivir? It's essentially an oral form of remdesivir, which was originally designed for Ebola. Remdesivir for Ebola had to be given through IV drip, but obeldesivir, also known as GS5245, is a version that can be taken by mouth, and it works as a polymerase inhibitor, which means it blocks a key enzyme Ebola uses to copy its genetic material and multiply. So by shutting down the virus's replication machinery, the drug keeps the infection from spreading in the body. So beyond survival, inducing immunity. The treated monkeys not only cleared the virus from their blood, but they also avoided the severe organ damage that Ebola typically causes. So remarkably, the animals developed an immune response as well. They produced antibodies against Ebola while on the drug. Now, this suggests that the pill didn't just save them in the moment, but also helped their bodies recognize and fight the virus, which could give some longer-term protection. In essence, obeldesivir, which is pretty hard to say, turned a usually deadly infection into one the monkey's immune systems could handle, which is a very encouraging sign. which is a very encouraging sign. I cannot talk right now. Why a pill is a huge advantage. So until now, Ebola treatments have been limited to IV therapies, specifically monoclonal antibodies that must be refrigerated and given through a needle in a clinic. These IV treatments, which were approved in 2009, only target one species of Ebola virus and are logistically hard to use in remote African villages due to the cost, cold storage, and the need for medical staff. So in contrast, a room temperature stable pill could be cheaply made, stockpiled, and easily distributed during outbreaks, even in a rural area with limited healthcare. So virologist Thomas Geisbert, who led this study, said that they want something that was more practical, easier to use, that could be used to help prevent, control, and contain outbreaks. He also noted that obeldesivir's broad-spectrum activity against multiple Ebola strains, whereas the existing antibodies work only on the Zaire strain. So that is a huge advantage, he said. In short, this pill could be a game changer. It's user-friendly and works on different versions of the virus, making it far more useful for emergency response. So what is the socio-political and economic context? Ebola mainly strikes poor countries in sub-Saharan Africa. So big pharmaceutical companies historically saw little financial incentive to develop treatments. Outbreaks are sporadic and dangerous to study, which further hinder drug trials. This breakthrough pill was made possible largely by US government funding through agencies like the NIH rather than by private investment. In fact, about 90% of the money comes from the US government for Ebola research, according to Geisbert. He and others have expressed concern that if government support wanes, progress against Ebola will stall. Notably, dozens of research grants were reportedly cut under a previous US administration, highlighting how politics and funding priorities can directly impact preparedness for deadly diseases. On the upside, this success with an antiviral pill could encourage more public health agencies and nonprofits to invest in pandemic preparedness for hemorrhagic fevers, seeing that even neglected diseases like Ebola can yield to modern drug design. So what are the next steps? The company behind obeldesivir, Gilead Sciences, is already moving into phase 2 clinical trials for Marburg virus, a closely related hemorrhagic fever, to test safety and effectiveness in humans. Successful trials for Marburg would open the door to trying the pill in humans for Ebola as well, likely in outbreak settings or in a post-exposure preventative measure for healthcare workers. So if human trials confirm the pill is safe and effective, we could, for the first time, have a widely accessible treatment for Ebola that doesn't require a hospital. This would be a monumental shift. Future Ebola outbreaks might be contained with something as simple as distributing pills to exposed populations or populations that are going to be exposed in the near future. So the economic impact could be significant too, because controlling outbreaks quickly means avoiding the devastating cost of prolonged epidemics. An oral drug is far cheaper to deploy than cold chain biologics. And in summary, the research brings a new hope that Ebola, often seen as a near certain death sentence in remote areas, could become a treatable infection with a timely pill-based medication. So, maternal diet and infant allergies, the avocado connection. So eating avocados during pregnancy is linked to fewer infant allergies. So a study in Finland suggests that when expectant mothers ate avocado regularly, their children were less likely to develop food allergies in the first year of life. Maternal diet is known to influence a baby's developing immune system. For example, past research noted that the Mediterranean-style diets in pregnancy might protect against allergies. So this new study zeroed in on a single food, avocados. And the finding was striking. Consuming avocados during pregnancy was associated with a 43.6% lower chance of the baby having a food allergy by 12 months old. So keep in mind, this is just a association study, right? So it could be that people who eat avocados or mothers who eat avocados have other lifestyle factors that would decrease the chance of allergies in their children. However, this is a useful tool. The researchers tracked 2,272 mother-baby pairs as part of the Kuopio birth cohort, or Kubiko. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. They categorized the pregnant women into avocado consumers, those who ate avocados in either the first or third trimester, and non-consumers. I wonder why they skipped the second trimester. Anyways, after the babies were born, they checked for allergies conditions up to 12 months old through follow-up surveys, and the results showed a clear difference in food allergy rates. Only 2.4% of children whose mothers ate avocados had a food allergy by age 1, compared to 4.2% of the children whose mothers ate no avocados. So this roughly half reduction in risk remains significant even after accounting for other factors, such as the mother's age, education, overall diet, quality, smoking, and others. Importantly, no significant differences were found in other common infant allergies, such as eczema, hay fever, or episodes of wheezing akin to infant asthma. The benefit seemed specific to food allergies. So why avocados? Avocados are rich in monounsaturated fatty acids, and these are one of the forms of good fats. They're also rich in fiber, vitamins, and antioxidants, and the authors speculate that these nutrients might influence the baby's immune development in the womb. For instance, healthy fats and antioxidants could reduce inflammation or promote a more tolerant immune environment, potentially lowering the chance of the baby developing an allergic reaction to foods. However, the exact biological mechanism isn't yet known. So it could be something like shaping the mother's gut microbiome or providing specific compounds that cross the placenta. And all of this requires further investigation, which is, the term that every scientist likes to use. In short, avocados might be acting as a proxy for a generally higher quality diet, or there might be a unique compound in avocados in of themselves, which is doing something beneficial. We need more research to separate those details. So what are the caveats? While the association is intriguing, the study doesn't prove that eating avocados causes fewer allergies. It only shows a link. For example, mothers who eat avocados might have an overall healthier lifestyles or diets, though the study did try to adjust for some of those potential confounding factors. Or there are other unmeasured factors that we need to consider. So longer term and additional studies are needed. The researchers themselves suggested that following the children beyond 12 months to see if the allergy protection persists later into childhood is extremely important. So it is possible that new allergies could develop after 1 year of age, so a longer follow-up will tell if avocado in pregnancy has a lasting protective effect or if it just delays the onset. Also, studying other populations would help confirm if this finding holds true elsewhere. Perhaps it's something specific to Finnish diets or genetics. So for now, doctors are likely to view this as an interesting but preliminary result, and it's too early to change the dietary recommendations for pregnancy based off of one food alone. So, funding and potential bias. It is noteworthy that the research was supported by the Haas Avocado Board, right? And it's an industry group that promotes avocados. So in fact, the first two authors in the paper are affiliated with the Avocado Board, which raises some conflict of interest questions. Surprisingly, though, the published article in Pediatric Research did not explicitly disclose the Avocado Board's involvement in the study's competing interests or funding section. So this lack of transparency drew criticism. As the Medical Express writer pointed out, there's nothing wrong with conducting or publishing industry-funded research, but if funding and author ties aren't clearly disclosed, it starts to blend with advertising in an uncomfortable way. In other words, readers and healthcare providers might doubt the results if it seems like a marketing effort. It is a reminder that independent verification is important, especially when a study's outcome aligns with an industry's commercial interests. And here it's showing a big benefit of eating avocados. So what are implications and next steps? If the avocado finding is confirmed by further research, it could have practical implications. For instance, OBs and nutritionists might encourage expectant mothers to include avocados as a part of a healthy diet, which many already do. It could also spur more targeted research into specific foods that might prevent childhood allergies, potentially reducing the public health burden of food allergies, which are on the rise. On the economic side, positive health messaging around avocados could boost their sales and farming, which is a clear win for the avocado industry. It might not necessarily be a win for the environment, right? Because some farming practices might not be the most efficient. So, however, the involvement of an industry sponsor means any policy or dietary recommendation will likely be scrutinized. Health authorities will want to see independent studies not funded by avocado marketers to ensure the effect is real and not a statistical fluke or bias. So until then, while avocados are certainly a nutritious addition to a diet, people should take these results with a grain of salt, as further evidence is needed before concluding that avocados definitely ward off infant allergy. The study opens an interesting conversation, but it's not a final answer. So with that, thanks for listening. I've spent a lot of money to have some AI tools available for me to help write this video. So if you want to support me, please do so. I've left some links down in the description. Yeah, and hopefully this will be one of many more videos to come. So I'm excited to start this next part of my YouTube journey. So you have a good one, and I'll catch y'all soon. Safety and performance. The researchers note that further